This is the last lecture in our module of input tax credit. We are going to deal with the manner and condition of distribution by the input service distributor. There are three broad conditions attached. One relating to documents. The input service distributor should issue prescribed documents to each recipient. The government will prescribe these documents and he just has to issue these documents to each recipient, giving out the details of the tax transferred. The second is amount of credit, and a very simple reason: the credit distributed should not exceed credit available. Logical, isn't it? The third one is where it gets a little tricky. It is related to the service. It is related to attribution of the input service. If the input service is attributable to specific recipient, then the credit of that input service should be distributed to those recipients only. So we'll check the third situation out in detail. The first two are very self-explanatory. There could be three situations where the input service is attributable to only one recipient, where the input service is attributable to more than one recipient, and where it is attributable to all recipients under the same PAN. The first situation, where it's attributable to only one, it's very easy. All of the credit which is related to this input service will have to be transferred, will have to be distributed to that recipient only. The second situation, where it is attributable to more than one recipient, then what will you do? In such a situation, the input credit on such input service will have to be distributed to only these recipients to whom such service is attributable on pro rata basis. What is this basis? There's a formula. It's nothing but turnover in a state of each individual recipient divided by aggregate turnover of all of these specific recipients put together during the relevant period. This is the proportion in which the credit has to be distributed to all these recipients. We already know what turnover in a state is. We've seen it while we discussed composition scheme. We'd seen that turnover in a state is all the supplies of goods and or services of a person within or from a state, and it excludes taxes and the value of inward supplies. We also know what aggregate turnover is. It is all supplies of goods and services of a person having the same PAN and excludes taxes and values of inward supply. What is unknown here in our formula is the relevant period. It gets a little tricky. Pay attention. There are two situations where the turnover in a state is available and where the turnover in state is not available. The first situation is where all the recipients have turnover in a state in the financial year just before the year during which the credit is to be distributed. So suppose the credit has to be distributed in 2016-17. You have 5 recipients. You have turnover in a state for all of these 5 situations in the year 2015-16. Then the relevant period would be 2015-16, that financial year. The second situation is where turnover in a state is not available for all of these recipients. It may be available for one but not all. In such a situation, the relevant period would be the last quarter for which turnover in a state is available for all of the recipients. This quarter should be before the month during which the credit is to be distributed. So two situations: turnover in a state is available, then you choose the financial year preceding the year in which credit is to be distributed. If turnover in a state is not available, then you choose the last quarter where all of these are available. The quarter should be before the month during which credit is distributed, whichever that quarter is where all turnover in a states are available. So that was the relevant period. Coming to the third one, you could already guess what this would be. It is attributable to all recipients. You could call this as common input service for all recipients within the same PAN. In such a situation, same basis, all the credit should be distributed to all the recipients on pro rata basis. The pro rata remains the same, turnover in a state divided by aggregate turnover of all these recipients during the relevant period. So this is how input service distribution would work. Attributable to only one recipient, distribute the entire credit to that recipient. More than one or all, distribute on pro rata basis. And that's all that we had to deal with in input tax credit. We've covered all the relevant concepts included in the provisions of input tax credit.